Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of Village Council for August 17th, 2020. Judy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Hausch.
I'm here.
McQueen. Here. Stokes. Stokes, do we have you?
I see him. Okay.
I'm not getting him.
Sorry.
Okay. Well,
Sorry about that.
oh, got you. Thank you.
Just got in from work. Sorry.
All right. Curlis.
Here.
And I have a statement from Lisa Krieger, who is not able to attend this evening. She says she regrets she's not able to attend the meeting. She had a complication following surgery and is now focused on healing after that setback. And she asked that we share that with everyone and that we will see her again in September. Also present this evening are Planning and Zoning Administrator Winger. Sergeant Watson is in for Chief Carlson this evening, and Public Works Director Burns is either here or will be shortly. Also, Village Manager Josue Salmarone and Solicitor Brianne Parcels.
All right, thank you, Judy. And we do want to send our thoughts and positive feelings to Lisa Krieger. I know that she wants to be at these meetings, and we really miss her. Let's go into announcements. And Judy, could you just remind everyone about the rules of engagement at the top here?
At the top.
I mean, at the top of the meeting. Can you just remind people
sure.
in terms of participating?
Yeah, when folks are participating during citizens' concerns particularly, there is a 3-minute limit, and we do that so that everyone gets a chance to be heard. So we're going to be pretty strict about adhering to that 3 minutes. You are asked to address council and not to address other folks. Even if you can see them on Zoom, we ask that you address council directly. Be respectful in your comments. And that's, am I missing anything, Brian?
Just the protocol for making those comments.
Yes, so you will want to either join via Zoom, and if that is attached to the agenda. So if you go to yso.com and look for the linked agenda, the link to get on the Zoom meeting is right at the top of that agenda, and a click will get you in. You can also contact Philip O'Rourke by email. He is POROURKE@yso.com. You can contact me at clerk@yso.com. And you can also enter into the Facebook chat. If you are commenting by any of those forums, you must identify yourself and your relationship to the village. If you do not do so in the chat forum, you will likely not be heard from, because we do need those identifiers for the official minutes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Judy. And we can also put that Zoom link in the Facebook chat if Philip wants to do that. Josue, I believe you've got an announcement or two.
Yes, I do, Brian. I want to announce that our pool is closing on August 30th. But more importantly, I want to send out a big shout out, thank you, and congratulate our young people who have been working at the pool. They've done such a great job at managing the pool, creating a safe space for everyone to enjoy the pool in the safest manner possible. As you know, we're one of the few public pools that are open throughout the state, and we've done a great job of creating a safe space. So I want to recognize these young people by name: Craig Arlington, Janafa Jones, Griffin Roberts, Josephine Zinger, Olivia Brindlinger Khan, Annalie Foster, Natalie Galarza, Audrey Speaks, Trinidad Speck Almanzar, Gavin Valmeter, David Walker, Kyle Wallace, Quaylen Michael Van Meter, Lauren DeWine, and Amani Wagner. Also want to thank Samantha Stewart for doing a wonderful job, not only helping train these young people, but also being a role model, a a peer mentor to these folks and just helping them by providing opportunities and helping them develop professionally. So job well done all around. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Josue. And yeah, I want to say I've been to the pool 3 times this summer. I felt safe. It's been great. And that whole team is just doing an awesome job. So thank you so much. Do any other council members have announcements? Okay. All right. I have a few. We got exciting news today. Yellow Springs has won the Sustainable Community of the Year Award, which is awarded by the Partners for the Environment, which is a Miami Valley group that it comprised of 5 Rivers Metro Parks, Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission, a lot of different groups that are doing great sustainable work in our area. So there's going to be an award ceremony if people want to mark their calendars for September 16th from 6 to 7:30. That's going to be virtual. We'll be putting out more information about that, but thanks to Matt Lindsay from MVRPC for nominating our village, and pretty exciting to be recognized for all the great work we do to be a resilient community. Second thing, happy National Nonprofit Day. This reminded me of the presentation that we did on August 7th for the Midwest Sustainability Conference. And that involved the village, the Environmental Commission, Home Inc., Community Solutions, Tecumseh Land Trust. And it was a really great conversation around how it takes a village to do all the things that we do. It reminds me also of the leadership team that formed at the beginning of the COVID crisis to address all the different issues that we were coming up against, food insecurity, housing insecurity, all the aspects of keeping our community safe. And I think related to that, a special shout out to the Yellow Springs Community Foundation that has helped, along with the Morgan Family Foundation, to establish the nonprofit network, which is a group of our nonprofits that have been meeting for many years that really helped us be prepared, more prepared to address all the things that have happened with the pandemic. I also want to mention that we had a request for designs for the Black Lives Matter themed street mural. And Judy, I wonder, did we get any responses? Because I know they were due last Thursday.
I did not get any. I have not checked with Cheryl Durgans with ACC. She may have received some. I haven't received none.
Okay. So if you could coordinate with Philip to get the ad that we had in the Yellow Springs News, and we can extend that deadline until the Thursday before the next meeting, that would be great. And I guess in particular, it was in the paper, but I don't think we posted it on Facebook. But one of the things that I do want to announce is we're looking for designs. In that, we mentioned thinking about eventually Dayton Street, Corey Street between Dayton and Xenia, and also Short Street are different possibilities. If we get more than one great design proposal, then we could do potentially more than one mural. So we definitely want to get that going. I think it's a very important initiative, along with other things we're doing, like the Black Lives Matter street banner, which we have something about in the packet. Next, I wanted to mention that last thing. We recently lost a wonderful member of our creative community, Brian Mon, and we have a few images that we're going to show. You may know that Brian Mon was the artist who was creating the Wheeling Gaunt bronze sculpture, and I was really fortunate to get to meet Brian early on, really when I first came to Yellow Springs in the spring of 2012. And at that time, I was the marketing coordinator for the Yellow Springs Arts Council. And it was really exciting to get to see Brian work around the National Bronze Sculpture Symposium, which brought forward my first interaction with council before I was on council with the public art policy that we ultimately created. And you can see one of the legacies that Brian left at the Mills Park Hotel. And those are the sculptures that he created for that Bronze Sculpture Symposium. And I think a lot of us remember Brian as loving to have fun. That first picture that we showed was he always liked to talk about the Bryans getting together. He, I, Brian Upchurch. There were several Bryans in town. And I just wanted to recognize what a great loss, but what a wonderful human being and somebody that brought so much to our community. So thanks, Brian. And let's move on to the next part of our agenda, which is the consent agenda. And I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our last two meetings.
I move that we approve the minutes from our last two meetings.
I'll second.
Okay. And Judy, let's go ahead and call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, review of the agenda. Anything we need to change, add, modify?
Brian, I have something. I'm thinking that Resolution 2020-36 should be moved to the very end of the agenda after the executive session.
Laura, for me anyway, I lost half of what
Oh.
you said. Can you say that again?
I think 2020-36, the resolution should be moved to the end of the agenda after the executive session.
So actually, we're not going to have an executive session, and I'm going to suggest that we keep it there and then do something differently, if that's okay.
It's always exciting. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yes, on the edge of our seats. Anything else?
And Brian,
Yeah.
I'd like to make a statement, and should that be part of special reports?
Yeah, let's add to special reports, I think an update on the activities related to the demonstrators' requests from council. Marianne, is that what you were about to say as well? Okay, yeah, I think that's a good one to put in special reports. So since I know a lot of people on the line might have been planning to speak at citizen concerns on that matter, that will be in special reports after we hear from Gina Marie Cox from the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. Anything else? Okay. If not, then Marianne, if you could go through the petitions and communications.
Yes. So we had a number of communications that were disturbed by the communication Kevin and I had with the demonstrators. And I will read the names of those people and if they said anything else. Louisa Beery, who also thanked the Black Lives Matter organizer. Jennifer Boyer, who was also concerned about the chief's call. Libby Flanagan, Don Johnson, two children, I think, Ezra and Gus, Karen McKee, Bonnie Muyenda, Nia Brevnik, Kathy Roma, Linda Radowski, Shonda Sneed, who also wants to have a list of what the Yellow Springs Police Department has accomplished. Eunice Brevnik, Suzanne Fogarty, who also supports the Black Lives Matter demonstrators, and Leslie Orr, particularly disappointed in my performance. Then we had letters from Mitzi Miller regarding wildlife habitat concern, Maury Rothman requesting the Black Lives Matter banner, Steve and Karen Curran opposing food trucks on the village-owned Railroad Street parking lot, Marcia Walgren opposing using Short Street for outside dining and opposing food trucks on the Railroad Street parking lot and need for more downtown parking. Greene County Public Health sent out a notice that August is the National Immunization Awareness Month. Then, moving on. Kevin Stokes and my letter to the Black Lives Matter organizers was included in the packet. The two lists of demands by the Black Lives organizers were listed, one entitled Youth Demanding Action to Council and YSPD, and the other from Julian Roberts, Additional Demands. Lisa Krieger had an update about the Black Lives Matter banner and support by the Arts and Culture Committee, and that is in the works. Kevin Stokes had a letter supporting the Yellow Springs Police Department. Elise Burns had a report from Mayor's Corp. Susan Stiles had a letter concerned with the canceling of the 4th of July parade, the chief's phone call to the KKK guy, and the importance of the First Amendment. And I think a number of those communications were not in the packet because they came in too late. The ones that came in after Friday will be in our next council meetings packet.
All right, thanks, Marianne. So we're going to move into legislation, and first we have Ordinance 2020-15, and Judy, let's go ahead and read that in up through the whereases,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
I don't mind. This is repealing section 242.01 composition classification of the codified ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, and enacting new section 242.01 composition classification. Whereas codified ordinance section 242.01 of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio describes the composition and classification of the police department. And whereas Village Council has determined that it would be in the best interest of the village to adopt a new section 242.01 entitled Composition Classification of the Codified Ordinances of the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, to include in the composition of the police department the position of Community Outreach Specialist as a full-time position. And whereas the position of Community Outreach Specialist enhances knowledge of and access to available social services for those in need of those resources with the broader purpose of protecting and benefiting the village. And whereas the position of Community Outreach Specialist began as a pilot project with the intention that the Chief of Police would recommend changes to the job description with the approval of Village Manager and input from Village Council. And all parties have now agreed that the position should be made full-time and that it be non-classified.
All right, thanks, Judy. Can I get a motion, please?
I move.
Second.
Okay. Josue, is this you or is this Sergeant Watson?
It's me, but I think it's all of us. We're happy to bring this before you after much talk and consideration for what's been a couple months now. We're excited to make this formal change to the codified ordinances and our organizational structure to include a full-time community outreach specialist. Florence has been invaluable to all the success of our department, and especially under the COVID-19 impact we've had. She's been instrumental in helping maintain resources in the community and make sure that everyone is served and has access to the resources that they need. So we're asking council for formal authorization to make this classification and make the position full-time and bring Florence on board full-time.
All right. Great. Well, this is our first reading of this ordinance, but I'd love to hear any questions or comments. And then I think we will take a vote, even though we'll have a second reading.
Okay. Brian, I would like to add just one technical information for technical purposes. The position's unclassified, and that has a lot to do with the type of work that the officer Florence does. Is different from what traditional hourly employees do. So if anyone asks why the distinction, that's part of it. It does meet all the other exemptions under the Federal Labor Standards Act, which I've included the fact sheet for reference purposes.
All right, thanks for that, Josue. Laura, did you have a comment or
Well,
question?
that was exactly my question is, whether it should be classified or unclassified. And if the position's going to require a professional degree or license, then I definitely can flip it into unclassified. But we don't have to answer that tonight. I'm just asking the question, and maybe the village solicitor can ponder it, and we can.
We discussed,
Sorry.
we had discussed that, and because it is a social work type of degree that is engaging in professional relationship building within the police department, it's under the supervision of the police chief, but it also exercises a high level of discretion with her background and training in connecting the residents of Yellow Springs with the community resources that aren't necessarily what would otherwise be within the law enforcement ambit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I saw an awesome in the chat from Bomani. Thanks for that. I agree. Yeah, I just want to say that, you know, these are the kinds of things that we've been working on. Very excited to see this happening. And when we talk later about our meaningful actions related to anti-racism, we feel that this is one of the positive changes that we can continue to work on our team. Anything else before we take a vote? Okay. Kate Hamilton, who was an originator of this idea, said that she's very happy to see this happen. This is something that we've not seen in a lot of police departments, and it's something that is really making a difference for the few that have done it. Okay, so Judy, if you could call the roll, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't need a public hearing. Go ahead.
Nope. Yeah, you don't. Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Resolution 2020-16. And Judy, we can read that in by title only.
Thank you. This is decriminalizing marijuana in the Village of Yellow Springs by amending Chapter 624 of the Yellow Springs Code of Ordinances.
All right. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and a second from Mary Ann. All right. Let's see. Brianne, why don't you start us off on this, and then we'll have a little discussion.
Sure. I'm going to approach the camera real quick because I brought my demonstration aids.
Right.
This is a 200-gram package of minute rice. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much 200 grams is. I'm a tea hound. I love my tea. This is a 100-gram container of Twinings tea. I'll put them right next to each other. Actually, I'll dump the tea so you can see. So, Ohio state statutes make it a felony to have, now granted, imagine that's marijuana. Double that amount and you have a felony possession charge. However, since they implemented the medical marijuana program, medical marijuana patients are allowed to have a 90-day supply, which I included the information in your packet, more than 200 grams. So one of the recommendations from the committee was, well, let's decriminalize marijuana. And I want to give Naomi a chance to weigh in here, because what the police department and the mayor's court have done is phenomenal in terms of practical efforts to do more with warnings, to do more with mayor's court resolution. But council has expressed that we want to decriminalize it to the extent we are capable, and that means removing or reducing the penalties for misdemeanors. Unfortunately, you cannot make a felony into a misdemeanor without being in conflict with the general laws. Therefore, what we have presented is to reduce or eliminate the penalties for misdemeanor possession, misdemeanor trafficking, misdemeanor gifting of marijuana. The other issue is that there are two spellings of marijuana that are used in the revised code. It's a matter of semantics, whether it's a J, whether it's an H, but the criminal codes all spell it with an H, while the medical marijuana codes all spell it with a J. So you will see it both ways. That is intentional. The legal ramifications of changing it to something that's a little bit less loaded as far as verbiage to something like cannabis has not been attempted yet. I would leave that to council if you did want to make that change, because this is a change to your codified ordinances. However, we still have to have one of the spellings in there because we cannot decriminalize felony possession of marijuana. So if you have any questions, that's what I'm here for.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Brianne.
Yes, I have a question. It's a long ordinance, which I had never read before, so I wasn't clear how much we'd already had and what got changed. But it seemed to me that it's in decriminalizing the possession, it's changing it to a civil matter, which could have a fine, but that possession of paraphernalia is still a misdemeanor. Can you clarify both of those?
Yes, part of the issue with paraphernalia, and I think Naomi can also speak to this, is when you have paraphernalia, you don't necessarily know what it was used for. If it's just got some residue, you incur police department expenses with testing that residue and seeing whether it's just marijuana or whether it's marijuana and a combination of some other controlled substance. So that was why we kind of left it alone in terms of, well, we'll leave the paraphernalia charge, but also reduce the misdemeanor aspect of it.
Yeah, and so just to clarify, because I had to read it several times as well. If you look in depth at 62406, it does distinguish between paraphernalia used for marijuana and paraphernalia used for other substances.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you look at that part, the paraphernalia used for marijuana does bring it into the civil infraction.
And the other thing we removed was the mandatory driver's license suspension. That used to be a mandatory suspension for paraphernalia, but not for the actual possession. And we took that out as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I would just, so in practicality, the police could stop someone in their car, for example. They could see that they had some marijuana, maybe they might have a pipe or something. So they could still cite them as sort of a civil matter and cite them for the possession. So it's not like people are getting a free ride.
Nobody's getting a free pass, but as far as practical application, I would defer to Naomi to speak on that because she's got more experience with the actual enforcement end.
All right. Naomi, do you want to speak now?
Okay, I'm sorry about that. I was having troubles with my mic. I can tell you that if you go by our stats and all the numbers that I know that Brianne has and stuff, we have not cited anyone, and we normally don't cite people for just having a pipe. It's a matter of confiscating it and destroying it, especially when it's just marijuana in it.
Okay. Naomi, did you want to add anything else to the discussion while you've
No, I think it's good. I think Brianne said it quite well.
Great.
Thank you, though.
Yeah. Laura, did you have a comment or question?
Well, I want to study this more, and I may have some amendments, or I'll talk to Brianne between meetings, but I really like Dayton's approach, where I believe in the article I read in the Dayton Daily News, they actually eliminated any fine. So it's zero fine. I still see $25 and $50. but it also has to be coupled with a policy at the chief's level. Whereas in Dayton, Chief Beal issued a directive basically because if there are no fines, he basically, I believe, instructed officers that it was a very low priority to even do anything about it. So I understand there's a practical side of this, but I'm not yet sure we've gone far enough, or at least as far as other jurisdictions have gone, to make this crime, which I don't believe it is a crime. I believe it's more in the civil case with these possession amounts. And I want to make sure we're treating it as such so that the collateral consequences from, and we all know the long history, you can read about it and the uneven enforcement and so forth on certain communities. I think it's just time to legalize it. If I was at the state level, I would, but let's do what we can here locally. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. And yeah, our home rule powers will not allow us to legalize recreational marijuana, but I do think that as Laura indicated, this is a good movement forward. I think there are a few things to look at. There were a couple things that I'll also forward to you, Brianne, that I just want to make sure they're clear enough. But I think it's very thoughtful, and it will give anyone else that has some, ideas that have some background in this, the ability to give us more feedback at our next meeting on September 8th, when we will have the second reading and officially vote on this. The other thing I do want to highlight that Laura mentioned is that this is, again, one of the things that we've talked about for a while as a council, and we think it does contribute to anti-racism and is a way to keep people out of the system. I agree with Sergeant Watson that our police team has done a great job of not focusing on this kind of issue, and I think codifying that is really important as well. So one of the things we'll do at the next Justice System Committee is talk about what Laura mentioned related to the chief also putting out a policy to complement this. I think that's a great suggestion. Kevin Stokes, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, just, well, sort of two things. Just wondered how much information we want to share from an educational perspective, so that folks don't get too free, if you will, in terms of, being careful with whatever practices they might have. So again, I think it's important to get some bullet points out so that, again, folks don't go too far to the left, as it were, whatever direction that really means. The other thing I was wondering about is if and when the state of Ohio legalizes recreational use of marijuana, I imagine this would just be a major modification of this particular ordinance as opposed to striking it completely, because there's still some elements of it that might still apply.
Well, some elements of it might still apply, but if the state of Ohio legalizes, we have an update to the codification process for anything that actually tracks the language of the revised code exactly, which would be like, for instance, the current felony possession numbers. So anytime a major overhaul of the state codes gets updated, our codification provider advises us that, hey, you need to update the village code that tracks that same language.
Okay, great.
All right. Thank you. Mayor Kanine.
Yes, thank you very much. I did want to say a few comments on this as being the person who runs the mayor's court. It's been my feeling in those last 3 years since doing that medical marijuana is legal now in 33 states. Ohio is one of them. Recreational marijuana is legal now in 11 states. And my attitude in what I've seen coming before the court, what I've been reading and what I've been following is it's just a matter of time. I firmly believe that. before we'll have recreational marijuana as well. So I listen to what Laura Curlis says very carefully, because I think there's some helpful ways this could be tweaked a little bit, and I'm sure she's got some good ideas. And I also listen very carefully to what Councilman Kevin said, because his point's well taken, to educate the citizens. And I know some people are worried about that Yellow Springs is going to become an opium den or something. And I don't believe that would happen. All we have to do is look at other places where it's been legalized. That said, Kevin, here's a few little bullet points to start you off. You still, you can't sell it. You're not going to be able to sell it. You're not going to be able to grow it. If you get caught, if you get caught with it, the police are going to take your stuff. They're going to confiscate it and they're going to destroy it. The nice thing is, since this is a civil infraction, more or less, that your record, you won't have a record for this, the way I'm reading this lengthy tome. You won't have a record as long as it stays at that minor misdemeanor infraction level. The misdemeanor, of course, would be thrown out. And that's good news. As was mentioned, we being the court and the police, have been working in tandem to reduce over the last 2 to 3 years any sort of onus for being caught with marijuana anyway. And now I believe the officers, for the most part, are just issuing warnings. I also want to point out, this has nothing to do with driving under any influence. Driving is a whole separate thing. Just like you can go out and have a beer or two at the brewery and walk home and everything's cool. You can go, or people can go do what they want to do with the marijuana or marijuana. And if they're doing it responsibly, it's not an issue. But the minute you get behind a wheel and drive while impaired, it becomes a whole different creature. So as Mayor Pam in charge of the mayor's court, I am totally in favor of this and support it any way the council deems helpful, and the police as well.
All right, thanks, Mayor Canine. Appreciate those comments. And we had one question from Tim Shattuck. Do medical marijuana users have a card they're supposed to carry? Brianne?
Yeah. Medical marijuana users are issued an identification that if they are transporting or have their medical marijuana substance in their possession, they are also supposed to have that card with them.
Okay. And there was a comment from Frank Jennings, keep it away from schools and out of downtown. So otherwise, we will have an opportunity for more discussion and feedback between now and our next meeting on September 8th. But Judy, I would like to do a roll call on this first read.
Right, Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes.
McQueen,
Yes.
Tausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, next up we have Resolution 2020-32. And Judy, we can read that by title only.
All right, this is authorizing the village manager to enter into an agreement with Arbor Care of Yellow Springs for 2020 utility line clearance, Section 3 of the village.
All right, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Josue or Johnny?
This is for Johnny. Johnny.
All right.
We received 2 bids on this. Arbor Care was the lowest, and they have done tree trimming for us. They do a fantastic job, and they are looking forward to getting started in the near future.
Okay, thanks, Johnny. Any questions or comments?
I have a question. I do know that this is primarily with respect to trimming trees down below the electrical lines, which the village is responsible for. And those are the lines that are higher up than the next set of lines. And that lower tier of lines is data, telephone, cable, and those types of things. Is anybody doing anything, any of the legacy cable providers, the telephone company doing anything with the second tier with the communication lines?
Kevin, last year we changed the standard for electric line clearing because we could not get help from the others. So we dropped it below the communication lines. That would allow for a slower growth back up into the primary and the secondary lines. Plus it allows us to be able to change out the poles easier. So we are trimming down to below the communication lines now.
Excellent, thank you.
Johnny, could you tell the village where you expect to be working this year?
It will be section 3, which will be from High Street north towards Fairfield, and the cutoff is King Street right there.
Okay, anything else? All right, Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Stokes,
Yes,
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right. Resolution 2020-33, title only again, please.
Yes, this is authorizing the village manager to enter into a purchase agreement with Pickle Lumber LLC for a pole barn assembly.
All right, can I get a motion?
so moved.
Second.
All right, I think Laura won that one. And Johnny?
This is for a pole barn package from Pickle Lumber. It is 60 foot wide by 200 foot long. This will have the electric trucks. We have outgrown the facilities that we have, and we have one that is in major need of repair, and it was cheaper to build a new one than it is to renovate the old one.
Okay. Questions or comments for Johnnie Burns? All right, well, I just want to emphasize it's very important that we protect our equipment. It's really costly, and in the past, we did not do such a good job, but under Johnny's leadership, I've been impressed with how we've maintained a lot of things in the village.
I also, my sense is that the cost is much lower than originally we thought it was going to be. Is that right, Johnny?
Actually, this is the package, Mary Ann. We've separated the garage door, the concrete, so the price is going to be going up, but we're doing the pole barn package first.
Oh.
Okay, anything else before we call a vote? All right, Judy?
Stokes,
Yes,
McQueen,
Yes.
Curlis,
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, next up, Resolution 2020-34. Please read that by title only.
This is approving a 2-year extension of the existing contract with Rumpke Waste Services.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
second.
All right, Josue.
Ryan, thank you. As you know, our contract with solid waste provider Rumpke is coming to an end in August. We are proposing a 2-year extension after an extensive review on service providers in the area and looking at who is the best service provider for recycling. As you know, a major pain point for our community has been the recycling options. Our community has asked for greater recycling services. Unfortunately, this is a situation where we're at the mercy of the key market providers, and Rumpke is the key market provider for recycling services. Its competitor that serves our area relies on Rumpke for recycling services. So our best option to continue the recycling services that we have is to enter into a 2-year extension with Rumpke. So that's the brief summary. What it's going to look like in terms of impact for our customers. We're not making any changes to a recycling service. That will continue as it is. We are proposing some changes to our service tiers. Currently, we have 8 service tiers that go from 35 gallons down to, or up to 400 gallon bins. We're proposing to consolidate the tiers into 3 service tiers, a 35, a 60, and a 90. And the reasoning behind that is that the vast majority of our customer base is on those 3 tiers. Now, what if you're a customer and you want more than 90 gallons or 120 gallon bin? Well, we'll make additional bins available at the same price point that the initial one is. So if you are at 90 gallons and you want to be at 180, you can request an additional service for that 90 gallon, and you can have it for as long or as short as you want. So the value here will be for families or individuals who may need a larger bin, say for the holiday season. Well, they can sign up for 1 month service for 180 gallons. So that's an option that we're making available. So short of it is, we're going from 8 tiers down to 3 tiers. The price point is going to go up as our service is going up. Now, we will be bringing an ordinance proposal at the next council meeting, and I hope that we're able to add this item to agenda planning tonight. But as our costs are going up, we unfortunately have to pass some of that cost on to our residents. So we are seeing an increase in our service cost. So that's what's included in this proposal. Now, there are things that we have added as terms of additional services in this contract that is not going to cost the village or the residents any additional money. An example of that would be is we've added a commercial service provision where if there is a commercial property that wants to take advantage of our contract with Rumpke and have us provide service to them, we can extend that service to that customer through a regular billing process. So that's a new feature. We continue to support the spring cleanup, but we've added an additional option in an effort to reduce costs or find other creative ways of serving our residents. We've added language in the contract that would allow us to have special collection days. So for example, we can designate a particular Saturday in a particular location where we can have a centralized location for folks to drop off their solid waste. So it's very similar to the service provision of a spring cleanup where Rumpke comes in and picks everything up, but instead of going house by house, they would come pick up all the things at a designated location.
All right.
Brief summary.
Thanks, Josue. And I see that there is a question from the Yellow Springs News.
Hi, Megan Bachman, Yellow Springs News. I was just curious, what is the increase in cost from Rumpke? I know that the village has yet to come up with their own, but what percentage increase was Rumpke's bid?
We're seeing 3 to 5% increases on the different items. So we're talking about tiers for residential bins, and we're also talking about ticket, the sticker options. So that's increased in pricing. There's an increase in price on the per ton pickup. So if you're familiar with our spring cleanup, or the Rumpke picks up all that waste throughout the town and bills us at a per ton rate. So we're seeing an increase on the rate as well. Those are the general expense increase.
Okay. Yeah, and by the way, it's always great if you're able to raise your hand if you do have questions, or they can go into the Zoom chat. So I do see a question from Donna Silvert about the recommendation to attempt to contract with minority service providers. I think that is a better addressed when we talk about meaningful actions later in the meeting. But I guess, Josue, are there any service providers that are minority owned for these services?
Well, you can get haulers very easily, but the problem is, where does the solid waste and recycling end up? The example, what I talked about with recycling, Rumpke is the key market player there, the only ones doing the recycling. Its closest competitor relies on Rumpke for recycling services. Mm-hmm. So haulers, yes, I can imagine that there are minority owners for the hauling piece, but we're limited to where our solid waste and our recycling goes to. So for us, it's been easier to work with a provider that offers a turnkey solution. They deliver bins, they pick up bins, and they provide a full service versus looking to piecemeal it out for somebody who's going to do the hauling, then have a separate contract for the landfill, a separate contract for the recycling. So that's the challenge with looking to hire a minority-owned business to do any particular element of the service.
All right, thanks, Josue. And I was also going to add that one of our actions that we're looking at is implementing a very solid policy around this. But I know that it's something that the village has considered in its decisions in hiring contractors for at least as long as I've been on council. And Kate Hamilton made an interesting comment related to Arbor Care that we voted on a few minutes ago, that is a locally owned, Black-owned company. That's great to hear. I know that we had a special meeting about recycling and waste management. Marianne or Josue, I don't know if either of you want to speak about what was the upshot of that meeting.
Yes, Brian, at the meeting, I presented an overview on what our collections are for 2018 and 2019. So we've seen a steady increase on trash collection. On trash collection in 2018, we collected 1,116 tons of trash. And in 2019, we collected 1,154. So that was a 3.5% increase. On recycling, we saw an increase, but not as much. We saw a 1.7 increase on recycling collection from 489.44 to 498.05. So the meeting was to provide some background on how our service work, what are our service tiers. We had, I don't recall the details, and maybe Philip is online to tell us how many viewers were online, but we did not get any questions on during that virtual town hall. And we wanted to be proactive and get this information out so that if anyone had any comments or concern, that we would try to have answers to those as they came up.
All right, thanks, Josue. Any other questions or comments before we vote on this resolution? Okay, if not, Judy, if you could call the roll, please.
Yes, McQueen.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thank you. Next up is resolution 2020-35. And Judy, if you could read that in full, please.
All right, this is establishing a justice system collaborative committee for the Village of Yellow Springs. Whereas council has committed to the following value in forming its annual village goals: intentionally promote anti-racism, inclusion, equity, and accessibility through all policies, procedures, and processes. And whereas Yellow Springs Village Council has therefore committed to ongoing review of the village's justice system, and whereas the Justice System Task Force, established by Resolution 2016-25, undertook this task on a temporary basis and provided significant input into policing policy and provided at their term end a list of suggested actions, and whereas the Justice System Collaborative Committee will comprise a working group that researches and develops recommendations to strengthen the Yellow Springs Police Department, YSPD, and the Mayor's Court, and serves to vet any such suggestions made by outside organizations or citizens. And whereas the Justice System Collaborative Committee will seek ways to increase public understanding of police department policies and practices, and to strengthen public trust in the village justice system across race, age, and income groups. Now therefore be it resolved by Council for the Village of Yellow Springs, Ohio, that Section 1, a Justice System Collaborative Committee is hereby established. Section 2, local resources will be utilized to the greatest extent possible, including but not limited to the mayor, council, the chief of police, the village solicitor, the village manager, NAMI, local Black Lives Matter activists, and engaged community members. Section 3, resources outside of the village include the Justice Department, as well as municipal, regional, and national organizations engaged in justice pursuits. Section 4, the Collaborative Committee will research best practices, innovative approaches, and justice system reforms that will include, but not be limited to, possibilities regarding pre-prosecution mediation and restorative justice practices that could strengthen the role of Mayor's Court, the role of a prosecutor in Mayor's Court, new developments in municipal policing practices that address institutional racism, methods of ameliorating the disparate impact of the justice system practices on the poor, alternative municipal policing approaches to drug control, best practices regarding police and youth, including educational programs, best practices in supporting police-community relationships. Section 3, the Justice System Collaborative Committee will consist of between 9 and 17 villagers, including a council and village mediation liaison. One member can be a township resident. All members will be voting members. A quorum will consist of a majority of the total number of members. Section 6, recommendations of the Justice System Collaborative Committee will be brought before council for a vote and next steps.
All right, can I get a motion?
I move.
I'll second.
All right, let me begin by saying that a very important part of being intentional about anti-racism and responding to this public health crisis was or is forming a group that can play a collaborative and advisory role. I think most people know that there have been 2 meetings that have been more informal, but have been well attended from a lot of the parties that are talked about or identified in this resolution. We had our second meeting this past Tuesday on August 11th, and it was, we had 18 participants. This was one of the agenda items because I think the reason why we're centering on a collaborative committee is the idea that we want it to be clear that this is a collaboration between community members, council, and the village administration. And that's why it's very important that we have Chief Carlson, Village Manager Josue Salmaron, and also Mayor Pam Canine engaged along with council members and active community members. We're going to be talking a little bit more later in the meeting about some of the things that were discussed last Tuesday, but I did want to mention that moving forward, we want to make sure that this group meets the Tuesday before every upcoming council meeting. Those meetings will be designed to review and vet some of these recommendations, do deeper dives so that those can be brought to council knowing that there was a lot of perspective put into those. Kellyanne Tracy had a great idea about setting up some working groups, which we're gonna be thinking about next time. But you know, one of the things that is moving forward are some of the things like decriminalizing possession of marijuana and some of these other pieces. But we also want to look deeper and systemically at all the different areas where racism is crops up, and that's pretty much everywhere. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Let's see. I see a hand from the Yellow Springs News. I'll start there. Go ahead, Megan.
Thank you, Brian. Will this committee be an official commission of council and thus abide by sunshine laws and have full transparency and accountability? And if so, why not?
Okay, yeah. So, and so if so, yes. So the idea is that, as we said from the beginning, these will be publicly announced meetings, open to the public, and we welcome everyone to participate. We are, I guess it's in a different category as a committee, and so it's not at this point an official commission, and it really, we're thinking about it truly as a collaborative between those constituent groups that I mentioned. Yeah, so I know you were on the first more informal meeting, but I think one thing that is important to highlight as well is that when we had the task force, we had a group that also kept us, you know, prioritizing these issues. And so that is one of the reasons why I know Judith and I championed some different formats, but this is one that we think is going to work really effectively. If, you know, we decide that converting it to a commission is important, we can discuss that when the time comes. But my personal philosophy is I want everybody that's interested to be engaged and involved. Marianne, you had a question?
Yeah, so, following up on Megan's questions, do people opt in if they want it, or are people chosen? Do they have to be approved by council? Are there terms? What structure is?
So, I mean, we can certainly push or create more structure. I think one of the things that I started to realize is creating or identifying a specific number may be challenging. And I think at this point, I'm not sure that the commission or the committee is voting on anything, but I'm open to doing that. I will say that as that resolution, now I think it says 17 members. There are many people that want to be actively involved, but if there's a feeling that that's going to add value, we can certainly do that.
And are you facilitating this?
So early on when we talked about this board or committee or whatever, I asked council if it was okay for me to take the lead and for Lisa to be the second council member. And so that's where we're at now, is myself convening along with Josue and then Lisa being the co-council person.
Thanks.
Something else, Marianne?
No, I said thanks. It's
Okay.
sort of, it seems like the more we're exploring how to work, I'll say collaboratively, we're creating teams that involve either other organizations, whatever name we call.
Right.
Or
right.
them.
Laura or Kevin, questions or comments?
Yeah, my first question is, what does this say about the Justice System Commission? Is it just simply on hiatus? It seems like there'd be a lot of cross-fertilization, if you will, if that was up and active, number one. And secondly, might this collaborative committee end up doing some of the work of or influencing the work of anything in the way of a citizens review board?
So the Citizen Review Board is definitely a separate initiative. And I know that that's one that Lisa's put in a lot of work and Marianne's been involved as well. That is, and this is in the packet for later in the meeting, an initial draft of some of the different actions. And one of those is the Justice System or the Citizen Review Board. So the collaborative committee is going to be focused on, vetting those ideas, but I expect that there will be some of those working groups or subcommittees that will develop those ideas. Then they'll be discussed more broadly, and then of course they'll come to council for further discussion and approval. So it's definitely a separate piece. And I know that one of the items we had at the last meeting was brought forward by Angela Allen about community sit-downs, which is, I think, moving us in that direction of a review board, which is, I think, is a really good idea. So this is like what we talked about with the Justice System Commission, but because of the lack of interest when we put out a call, and also we didn't have really a council member that was identified for that. My preference at this point is to collaborate with our village manager and the community, and that is feeling to me like we have the capacity to do that. And I think it accomplishes the same goals and maybe a better model moving forward. But if we find that we need to tweak it, we can always do that.
Understood.
Laura? Yep.
Well, my perspective is different because I'm more in favor of a permanent structure where we're not creating process all the time, like just exactly what's happening now with Kevin asking, well, is it a commission? And Mary Ann, well, do they have voting power? But let's put that off for the next council retreat. I would favor having a public safety committee to deal with a lot of, you just put it on the agenda of the committee and anyone in the public comes, it's a public body, sunshine laws. So I would go at it totally differently. With that said, I'm very much in favor of this moving forward with this proposal. And my only sadness is that due to the sunshine law, only 2 members of council can participate. And I would very much like to participate, but we already tagged you and Lisa for this. So that'll be the way it is until the committee actually brings a recommendation for action to council, where then council and then the entire community can talk about that. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Lauren. That being said, since these are going to be publicly announced meetings, council members can attend. And I understand that, the engagement level, needs to be, I guess, moderated. But I mean, they will be publicly noticed.
Council members can't talk though if we go.
Yeah, that probably would not be the best practice. Judy, were you going to say something related to that?
Not related to that. I had another comment for when you're.
Okay. But the other thing I will say, Laura, is the recommendation or the committee that talked about council committees is kind of an inspiration for me here. And I know it's not exactly the model that you were thinking about, but I think it's got elements of that. And that's part of why I also wanted to approach it this way, because I do imagine that we'll be, potentially looking at different models moving forward. And I want to talk about that as well at the council retreat. Go ahead, Judy.
I just wanted to make the comment that the Justice System Task Force certainly invited folks to their meetings and engaged with them in working groups and used a lot of community members in forming the decisions and policies that they made, although those people weren't official members of the commission. The difficulty that I see with the high upper end in terms of membership is achieving the quorum. That can become problematic. It almost seems easier to maybe set a slightly higher number of folks that you would have on the committee who could vote or are official members for purposes of a quorum, and then just keep that open invitation to folks to participate. I realize you probably won't be voting on a lot of things, but that ability to hold a meeting and for people who are engaged to feel that they have voice in that meeting and that enough voice is representative when the meeting is held are kind of important aspects of that quorum feature.
Good point. And I think this resolution allows us to, if we get to the stage where we do need to start voting on things, then we can appoint those members. And I think your advice is good to keep in mind. All right. Any other questions or comments before we take a vote? Okay. Judy, could you call the roll, please?
Yes, Stokes.
Yes.
Curlis.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
Hausch.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And our last piece of legislation is Resolution 2020-36. Judy, title only, please.
Yes, this is authorizing the village solicitor to take legal action defending Village Charter Section 6 voter qualifications.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, Breanne.
Okay, so the reason that I am not asking for action on this tonight is because if you'll read the resolution, there's a big fill in the blank spot. I would prefer to have all 5 council members take a vote because we have had some communications on this as far as what to do, and probably needs to be a discussion in the executive session. However, because we may need outside counsel on this, we have had a firm that does deal with expedited election matters volunteer to speak to council lending their expertise on the subject for a limited period of time through a Zoom meeting. So I would recommend that we have a special meeting with that firm, and then council could have more information available in terms of deciding what to do with this, because we have been sort of reactive in terms of the July 30th communication to the Board of Elections, which was not directed at us, but then also with the inaction of the Board of Elections just verbally telling us last week that they were going to follow the Secretary of State's guidance, but that all they did was schedule an executive session with their own counsel for September 15th. So that gives us a little bit of breathing room to have council decide what it wants to do as a body. And you've also had, of course, input from the public on this issue that you'll want to take into account.
Thank you, Brianne. Yeah, I want to also emphasize that Laura Curlis, Brianne, Josue, and I attended the Greene County Board of Elections meeting last Thursday. So for their second meeting, they did not, well, 2 meetings ago, they tabled our form to allow non-US citizen residents to register to vote. And then they tabled it and basically said they were going to have an executive session next month. It was interesting to hear them in the meeting talking about enfranchising folks. And I hope they think a little bit more about that in their own decision, because there is precedent for a Board of Elections to not follow a directive from the Secretary of State. But disappointing that they're putting this off as we get closer and closer to the election. So that being said, I want to make a motion to table this resolution. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. And Judy, if you could call the roll.
Yes, Curlis.
Yes.
Stokes.
Yes.
McQueen.
Yes.
House.
Yes. And Judy, I'd like you to follow up with Council and Brianne about scheduling that special meeting so that we can talk to that lawyer that has expertise in this area in executive session. And then I would expect that we would come out of that executive session and potentially have some discussion that may involve this resolution. So if you could coordinate that, and Brianne can coordinate with that attorney, and then also we can make sure to get it announced and everything.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're going to move into citizen concerns. Again, a reminder that this is the point in the on the agenda where we welcome comments about anything that's not on the agenda. So remember, one of the items that we've added to special reports is related to the update on requests that have been made from our demonstrators. And Marianne and Kevin, I expect several community members will want to speak to that. And so any other items that don't involve that issue or on the agenda, we welcome any comments, no more than 3 minutes. So do we have any citizen concerns? Okay, I'm not seeing any. So let's move to special reports. And I believe first up, we have Jean Marie Cox talking to us about COVID-19 resources.
Hello, thanks for having me. So I'm here representing the Yellow Springs Community Foundation. We've been part of the community for 45 plus years. And our role is to be a resource for charitable giving and also for grant making. So COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to do exactly that. And so I thought today I'd give you an overview of some of the resources that we have available, and to recognize our donors. And so I'm going to start on the donor side. To date, we've had over 620 donors of financial funds into the community for COVID-19 specifically. I'm not talking about any other funds, just for COVID relief. We've had over 100 individuals volunteer to support the community in a variety of ways. The amount collected from donors is over $150,000 today. And of that, we've distributed a little over 60,000. One might say, oh, that's not very much, but we recognize that this is a long-term situation, that we are going to need to give funds out over a long period of time, not just yesterday. And so we're being very careful on making sure we're getting the funds where they need to go. And so a lot of caution is being taken on how we're getting the funds out, but we're trying to get as many funds out as possible. On the other side of it, the Community Foundation has put up over $100,000 in loan and rent relief funds at the Yellow Springs Credit Union. And so combined between our donors and our very generous donors in our community and the board of the Yellow Springs Community Foundation, who put up funds, we have about $300,000 that is actively available and for our community in the COVID relief. So with that, I want to flip a little bit to where are those funds going today? Our key areas for those funds are food insecurity. So the food pantries, we are giving coupons out for food where you can go to Tom's and buy groceries. We have a variety of ways to get those coupons out into the community. We are working with rent relief. We have several funds at the credit union that are one for individuals and rent relief, and the other fund is for businesses and nonprofits and rent relief. So those funds are available. We've done a lot with community service, with essential worker support, and what I would call health and safety, a variety of masks and hand sanitizer, and supporting businesses and individuals to get those products to either to their business and or their organization. So with regard to getting the funds out, there's a variety of ways through our grant process. We have, you can go on and apply for a grant, COVID relief. You can go to the credit union. You can go to Florence through the police department and work with her. The pantries are another resource. So there's a wide variety of ways to connect in with the funds that are available today to our community. So I can go into detail. We've got graphs we keep on the Yellow Springs Community Foundation website of all of the funds and the amount of money that's in them and how they're being distributed. And that's at www.yscf.org. So that's our website, yellowspringscommunityfoundation.org. That all of the detail is there. So you can look at that. We update it every couple days. We also can always make a phone call to the foundation and be happy to help get to a combination of our volunteers, our neighborhood block contacts, the credit union, and get those funds out to the people that need them.
All right, thank you, Gina Marie. And yeah, I just want to say that the Yellow Springs Community Foundation has really been a model in terms of jumping in, helping to activate all the different groups, and it's been so great to collaborate with you and all the other organizations, and yeah, it's just huge. And you know, I think given the size of our community, the amount that that we've done and that you guys have largely orchestrated has been really amazing. So thank you.
Thank you.
and happy Nonprofit Day. Do council members have any questions or comments?
Well, I would just like to thank Gina Marie. I had initially asked her to come to council, and we had talked, I don't know, probably February, before the lockdown. And, initially I had thought it would be good for village government to find out how people might be able to donate to village government on particular projects. And initially it was for the senior affordable housing, but then COVID hit and everything has changed. And so it just seemed much more relevant to find out all of the things that the Community Foundation has been doing and all the people that they've been working with. And it's amazing. Thanks.
Thanks, Mary Ann.
I'd also like to thank Gina Marie. I was talking to Gina Marie on the phone a few weeks ago and told her how impressed I was in the early stages of the pandemic with the response they've had, and just how, in terms of folks needing support, all roads led to the Community Foundation, as it were. And Brian, to your comments about, community as small as we are, having the resources that we do, how quickly we effectively mobilize to get aid into the hands of people. And again, Gina Marie and the Community Foundation were out front leading that charge. And I certainly commend you and all your members and your board for all that you're doing.
Thanks, Kevin. Laura?
I'll just say ditto, and I've referred a number of people to the foundation, and I'm sure if they could be helped, they were helped, and I really appreciate everything the foundation has done during this, especially this time.
All right, thanks, Laura. Again, it really underscores the importance of collaboration and that it truly takes a village. So we're going to move into our second special report, which is updates on responding to the requests from our primarily youth-led demonstrators. I actually want to begin, since Chief was not able to be at this meeting. Actually, he had a pre-scheduled vacation, and I think it's very important that everyone takes some time to make sure that they're mentally focused. But he did want to share this, and I think it really kind of sets the stage for moving forward and some of the things we'll talk about around meaningful anti-racist action. From Chief Carlson, the de-escalation of calls regarding hate and threats of counter-protest are part of the job in this position as your chief of police. Conversations with Village Black Lives Matter activists have given me a greater understanding of my actions within the magnitude of the national crisis of racism. I recognize that this demands more deeply informed action on my part. I look forward to continuing dialogue with our village activists. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann McQueen and then Kevin Stokes.
Thank you. So I prepared a short statement that I am going to read. So if it sounds like I'm reading it, I am. As many are aware, there were two meetings a couple weeks ago with Black Lives Matter demonstration organizers and our village manager, Josue Salmaran, Chief Brian Carlson, some members of the Yellow Springs Police Department, and council member Kevin Stokes and me. I had requested these facilitated meetings because I felt that there were tensions between the Black Lives Matter demonstrations and the village government. I believe that village government and the organizers shared the overarching goal of anti-racism work, even though we both had different roles and different strategies. If we had a chance to meet together in a circle, I thought we might be able to more deeply share both our concerns and goals and how to be more effectively aligned. However, the results of the meeting and the communications afterwards between the organizers and Kevin and me had the opposite effect. I'm very saddened by this. It certainly was not my intention. I know that everyone involved holds a passion for social justice and is aware of how the negative impact of racism has stained our country. I apologize for how things came down. I'm sorry for the pain this has caused. I hope to better learn how to reach out across different groups to more effectively come together. I will engage with others to discuss how to design meetings so as to reduce the unintended consequences that we are now experiencing. If we can't find ways to disagree without fear of public condemnation, then we will lose the deeper understandings and solutions that come from valuing all points of view. And as we get distracted from, and it causes us also to get distracted from the work that we all agree is important. At the meetings that we held, village staff, Kevin and I agreed to respond and address to the list of demands that the demonstrators made to council at our last meeting. I committed to getting our responses back to the Black Lives Matter folks by the end of this month. It's time to move on and focus on the anti-racism work and not get distracted by ineffective back and forth communication. I believe that Kevin would like to say something, and then I will go over each demand and we can clarify what person, committee, or department will provide the response.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you, Brian. I too have a written statement, so I am reading. I would like to address some concerns that have risen over the past couple of weeks regarding the weekly demonstrations in Yellow Springs and Village Council. To the organizers and participants of the Yellow Springs Black Lives Matter demonstrations, please accept my sincere apology for inadvertently making you feel put upon and asking you to do something that you felt would have been humiliating to you. It was not my intent to cause harm, but I understand your feelings about the letter and the tone of the communication. I should not have co-written and sent that letter, and my pride does not prevent me from admitting that. Please forgive me for the hurt I have caused. To Council members Krieger and Curlis, I hold each of you in high esteem, and I value you as team members. So I was surprised to read your letter in the YS News last week. It is incorrect to attribute to my words or actions in regards to the organizers a desire to get them off the streets. I understand that you were quoting a previous letter in the paper, but I would have expected you to come to me for clarity as opposed to proffering someone else's opinion as part of your motivation to write your letter. It is also misleading to propagate the notion that the restorative justice process presented anyone as wrongdoers. The neutral facilitators of the process designed the interaction to be an open dialogue about concerns. No one was identified as a wrongdoer, and I am sorry that the term restorative justice has furthered this idea. As Marianne McQueen explained during the July 20th council meeting, this was not the original intention of that term, nor our intention in using it. We were simply wanting to have more time for discussion with the organizers regarding their demands than what the council meeting would have allowed. Further, the possibility that at least one restorative session was going to take place was discussed in that July 20th council meeting. And so nothing was done in the dark or without notice. Other meetings often occur involving only 2 council members and are therefore not required to be publicized as our regular council meetings. An example being the village manager advisory board meetings. I fully support your desire, my colleagues, to encourage the Black Lives Matter demonstrators to stay active. I don't think it needed to be done at the expense of your colleagues. Whenever you feel I've stepped out of line, please feel free to come to me directly. I would welcome your advice. And now to the greater village of Yellow Springs community. I ask that you forgive me for the part that I've played in allowing the focus on the very real national issues of police brutality and social justice to become sidetracked by a misguided effort to further dialogue after the restorative sessions. As previously stated, it was not my intention to cause harm. I have been elected to this office to support, represent, and legislate on behalf of each resident of the village. I want us to regain our focus and continue down the road to becoming the anti-racist, welcoming community that our village values espouse. The letter that Marianne and I wrote ended with "in solidarity." The letter from the Black Lives Matters organizers included the phrase "moving forward together." I believe we have a common goal. Let's move forward together. Thank you.
Marianne?
Marianne, you're muted.
Oh, yeah, okay. What I said is, I think that we should start moving through the list of demands and list what information we have and what information we need. So I'm going to start. The first one was the weekend booth. The weekend booths with masks should also include petitions, donation funds, pamphlets, and phone calls for Black Lives Matter. So I believe that there are no longer booths. Is that correct, Brian? Or are we still doing that?
No, we ended that a couple weeks ago. So we did 5 weeks, and that was a temporary initiative.
Okay. So the next one involves educational reform. An example, intermixing the events of the 60s civil rights movement and Cold War. So John Gudgel has agreed to take this on, and he says that there will be an expanded curricula, not only at Mills Lawn School, but also at the high school. And that the 11th principal of Mills Lawn is an African-American who's just been hired, and she is the 4th female principal. And I will reach out again before the end of this month to John to find out more details. The third demand, repercussions and strategic plans on how to handle calls made to the Yellow Springs Police Department regarding, in quotes, suspicious activity. And I think I didn't really understand first what this was about, but Cadet Brockington is working on updated policy for the dispatch to handle that. And I also thought that this could be a good case study for the role plays that the chief has the department doing, because that it just seems like that's something that's happened. And so it would be good to get different minds involved in that. The fourth, establish quantitative and qualitative analysis of progress and data on any programs established to measure progress towards goals. So Josue is looking at data on citations and analyzing monthly reports issued. And Florence Randolph is also analyzing data on her end, and will be or is going to be having monthly reports. And then it says data can trigger more questions. So I'm not sure that this is a full enough answer, but I don't know if Josue has anything to say about this right now.
Yes, thank you, Marianne. You know, part of the discussion on Saturday was to tease out some of the requests, what particular data and what is available to us. So we certainly commit to not just providing further detail on the current reports that we provide, which are the monthly activity report by the police department, the mayor's court report that lists out all charges that are sent to mayor's court and what charges are sent to municipal court. But we also want to look at other performance data that we could report on and also use to make improvements in our process. An example that I gave at Saturday's meeting was that we've been able to analyze traffic stop data and looked at how many of those stops lead to a verbal warning, a written warning, and an issue citation. And we could see patterns by the various police officers and how they apply certain rules. And there were a couple examples within that data that we can use as training models of who represents the right mix of what verbal warning, written warning, and a small number of citations. So that's an example that we provided at that Saturday meeting. We've been able to procure the Power BI platform through the Microsoft Dynamics 365, which is an analytics system, and we'll be working on loading our police data onto the Power BI to do better data analysis and analytics. We're also committed to making the data readily available. Right now, as it is, the data goes in the form of a PDF page and buried in a 200-page report. This month's packet was 119 pages, but it's very common for us to have a council package of 200 pages, so it isn't readily available for someone to go in and see these individual packets and find the data. So we'll be committed to making all of our police data much more readily available through our website. There's still more data points for us or data models to design, and we're going to look at what's our data collection methods and what data we can report on, make available. A good example recently is the marijuana use data. Our village solicitor, Brianne, and Sergeant Naomi Watson made reference to how we have very low marijuana citations or infractions issued in the last 3 years. So we're going to be looking at all that data and present it, make it available for the public.
Josue, are you then going to write a written response summarizing what you said?
Yes.
Thank you. I'll touch base with you about that. Okay. The next demand, financially support the creation of a column in the Yellow Springs News, which will feature African-American people and issues and causes locally and nationally. So I spoke to Megan Bachman. I believe that they're already in the process of doing such a column. And she also indicated that it would not be appropriate or necessary for the village government to be financially supporting this. So I will touch base with Megan again. So then there are 3 more demands that I think sort of fall into one category, and I'm going to read them first. Admit an error in judgment has taken place in the past few weeks. I believe that this involves the call by the chief, I think. This, most importantly, needs to include an analysis of the Yellow Springs Police Department, specifically an analysis of recent phone calls that Chief Carlson has made to an alleged KKK member. And then the next one, the 8th, what I've numbered as the 8th demand, is address the lack of urgency against threats made from a member of a terrorist organization against members of this community. So my sense is that these 3 demands fall under the larger category of how we handle potential terrorist threats. And I'm also thinking that probably it would be good for the police department and the village government to reach out, find out, get more research, maybe have someone come and speak to council to educate village government and the community. I don't know, but clearly terrorist demands are something to take very seriously, and we want to do that. And we also want to do it in a way that values Yellow Springs as an anti-racist community and protects the community as well. So I don't know if anyone, Josue, do you?
We're talking about that, and we've talked about that in the collaborative committee. So
you will take that on?
yes, I mean, I think most of the things here will, be reviewed and vetted by the collaborative committee.
Okay. The next one. This also includes the council undermining everything they announced publicly by reaching out to other village members in an attempt to silence the organizers. I don't have any information about that. I asked for more information. So if someone has more information, happy to look into that. And the next one, put substance behind the announcement of racism being a public health crisis. Steps need to be taken immediately to show a plan of action. Let's see, 10. I mean, this is a broad thing, I guess. I'm thinking that HRC could be involved in this, the Justice System Collaborative could be involved in it. I'm open for, and also I thought maybe Lisa as a nurse might want to get involved in this. I know she's not at our meeting. Brian, do you have suggestions?
Well, we have a working document in the packet. We've had 2 very rich meetings. You know, this particular list came out after we didn't have time several meetings ago to discuss this because we spent a lot of time talking about masks and public safety in that regard. But the very next meeting and moving forward, these are priorities on our agenda, which I think is reflected in what we did today and on that list that we'll talk about later in the agenda.
Okay, next. Be in attendance for rallies and or protests, show support that is not negated by complaints of inconveniences protests have on the town. I think that this is an individual matter for everyone. Do you have anything, Brian, you want to say about that?
No, but definitely, you know, we'll be talking about that more. Sure.
Okay. The next one, reallocate funds and resources to address this public health crisis.
We're starting to do that with the ordinance we passed today related to our community outreach specialist. And I also know we have in the works looking at a part-time position as well in that same vein. So yeah, this is definitely something that's in that sort of deeper discussion.
The next one, publicly expressing what you have done to make changes in hopes that this will cause a ripple effect and inspire other people in the community to stand up for justice. So, Brian, you and I have already talked about a list of things I have, and I'll continue to work with you on that. Okay, hold officers, council members, all elected officials, and teachers accountable for their actions and ensure they are consistently checking for the bias they may hold. So here's what I wrote in response to that, and I'm open to hearing other council members. I think this takes some deep conversations. It's very easy to start calling out people for things they say or do in a way that is shaming. I don't think that's what we want. I wonder if 365 or the Village Mediation Program or other groups could offer some public trainings or workshops or venues on how to do this in a way that isn't like holding public court of opinion.
Marion, let me step in there if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So in particular, that's one of the areas that I said I would take responsibility for.
Okay.
Village Manager Josue Summeron and I have been going through the online training program that the village staff has access to. And we've identified several implicit bias related training courses that staff would be able to take advantage of. And we have not yet determined how frequently we would do that or offer that. But it was our intention to have regularly scheduled trainings or updates so that it's not just that one and done training, but there are enough different modules in this program that allows us to do something at the very least quarterly, throughout all of next year and beyond. But we will continue to fine tune that process. But again, the fact of the matter is that we have identified several courses dealing with implicit bias, some focused on the managers, some focused on line employees to address our concern with respect to providing some sort of regularly presented updates. So we've got that going so that we've made great strides in there with that one.
Okay, thank you. Then there are two more, then they may both fall with your purview, Kevin. Ongoing or regular implicit bias training should be given to all people who hold positions of power in this community. Of course, that's not just the village government.
Well, yeah. So yeah, just doing it for everyone in power in the community. You alluded to HRC a while ago, and perhaps HRC could take on the mantle of doing a broader push besides just the village staff. The program that I referred to earlier, that Josue and I have been talking about, is meant to be for village staff because it is a service, again, provided by the village. But with respect to sharing that information on a broader scale, certainly I think we can do that. And I think perhaps HRC would be the type of entity that could handle that. So yes, we will take that on as well.
Okay, the last one, actively work to ensure that implicit biases are questioned and countered in every decision, legislation, and educational curriculum made for the village in the future. So Kevin, I think you've addressed this to some degree. I also think there might be a way that we could incorporate some of this in our village value statement, and John Gudgel could be the liaison for this, I think, within the school system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone that was there at the sessions that we had did express a sense of ownership for several of the activities that will be required to address the demands. And that, I think, would be a good fit for at least to have John involved. I have one other area that I did speak to, and it when all the demands were written out, it seemed to be, I think, on the list of, I think I identified number 10. There was a list that it was numbered on that numbered list, number 10, and that's to Donna's question earlier, and Josue spoke to that with respect to waste management. You know, Donna asked about were we paying attention to Basim's question about making allowances or ensuring that women and minority-owned businesses have equal opportunity, if you will, to bid on contracts. And we are looking at that. Josue and I have been talking. He's, with his past experience in the District of Columbia and in that area, they've used a process, and I've recently read about it after communicating with Josue. So Josue, you want to pick up on that, the issue we were talking about earlier?
Yes. Can I actually, Josue, before you know, I think it has been great to outline all this and clearly very thoughtful responses. But, you know, I think maybe we don't want to go into detail on everything today. And I expect that we have some other people that want to comment. I know Laura does as well. So is it okay if we leave it as we know we're looking at a process and that we're going to move forward with that?
That's fine with me.
Okay. Okay. So Mary Ann, Kevin, anything else on the list?
No, just to say that we will be listening to other ideas that people have. Okay.
So I just want to say one thing and then give Laura a chance to make some comments and then citizens. I just want to, I love that there's a lot of thinking and intentionality and action. But I do think it's really important now that we've formally established the Justice System Collaborative Committee that almost everything that's under village policy is funneled through that group. So, you know, for example, implicit bias training, we want to get the benefit of the folks that have expertise to contribute to what's going to be most meaningful and supportive of our goals. So I think it's great to, you know, come up with these ideas and recommendations, but I do want us to use this committee and all that expertise. John Gudgel is one of many that are attending those meetings. And then I think that committee can also then help make recommendations about, does that work fall in HRC's plate or does it fall, you know, in the village manager's plate or whoever. But let's make sure that we use this committee and process. So Laura?
Well, I'm very supportive of everything on the list that Marianne and Kevin have done and addressed, but obviously it needs to be, a lot of the details need to be worked out, and that'll happen, I think, through that committee. I appreciate all the work that's been done. And I'm happy the committee exists because this list is of a moment, and as time goes on, there'll be more things that obviously we need to work on, and I'm glad that that will be a vehicle for doing that. I'm anxious to hear what others have to say. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Laura. And I'll answer one question that I saw from Linda Radolski. Can the village offer these trainings to community members? Yes, we're definitely thinking about sort of how crisis intervention team training, was brought by you and Catherine Hitchcock and was a community training that then, we notched up for our officers to do 40-hour training. We've talked about de-escalation in the collaborative committee. And I liked what Marianne talked about with, does it make sense to have sort of anti-terrorist trainings that involve the community as well as our peace officers? So that is definitely some of the thinking. If you look at the list that's in the packet, we identified a lot of these things because we've been listening to all the different ideas, and that is going to be a working list that will continue to develop as we go. Okay, so I saw Angela Allen's hand up earlier. Angela, did you still have some comments?
No, it was just actually like a thumbs up. But for the silencing, the protesters, I think we've been dealing with that for the past few weeks. And I think it's been addressed with the letters and, the support. And so moving forward, I think we're just going to be focusing on the demands, and we appreciate all the work that's been, that's gone into them so far. So thank you.
Thanks, Angela. And also thank you for being at our meeting last Tuesday. I'm really excited about moving forward the community sit-down initiative. I see Megan Bachman's hand up.
Thank you, Brian. I guess I'm a little confused. It seems like you're going to be putting all of this under the Justice System Collaborative Committee, but that seems to be focused on policing. I'm just wondering, and not explicitly anti-racism. Are you saying all the anti-racism type activities are going to be part of the Justice System Collaborative Committee? And if so, are you going to kind of rewrite some of the, the intro about what that's about?
Yeah, I think that it's a work in progress, but if you look at the draft list, and we actually have a new version that we'll share when we get there. The reason why Ellis Jacobs, for example, is on the committee is because of the housing insecurity issues. So the pay and stay ordinance that we passed 2 months ago is something under that. We need to think more about transportation, especially given that Miami Valley Regional Planning is having some difficulties with some folks in establishing that racism is a public health, in their case, emergency. And we need to think more about those other systemic aspects. So we need to flesh that out more. And the focus is not just on the public safety piece. So, yeah. Okay. I saw also Sergeant Watson's hand up.
Okay, so thank you. And I wanted to let everybody know that you mentioned the 40 hours of CIT training for every officer. I wanted to let you know that now it goes beyond 40 hours. It is ongoing training throughout all times now. 40 hours is mandatory, but there's a lot more training out there, a lot more training that we're doing, especially right now online through Zoom meetings, through webinars, that is implicit bias, and deals with all the current issues and stuff. So it goes beyond the 40 hours that that we make mandatory before. each officer is out of their probationary period.
That is awesome to hear. Thank you for sharing that, Sergeant Watson. Do we have other comments?
I have a comment. I'm sorry, I don't know how to raise my hand. It's Julian.
That's okay. Go ahead, Julian.
So I don't want to be too long-winded or anything, because I know you did say that a lot of this is going to be under the category of the Justice System Advisory Board. But I just have like a highlighted list of each of the demands, kind of like what Mary Ann did. I just wanted to say I have updates from 2 people, which I can also forward out to other village council members from Cadet and from Mr. Gudgel. They gave me kind of thorough updates where they are. I just wanted to know if the individuals who spoke at the restorative justice meeting and who took responsibility, so like Josue, Stokes, Carlson already released his letter, could send me an email of like your current update, and then I could just like add this to our document as well.
Sure, no problem.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. But and again, thanks for sharing that, Julian. What I want to make sure is that we, collectively bring all this together so that, everyone, we're not duplicating our efforts.
Right, right, absolutely.
Right. And I hope you're going to be able to attend some of those meetings. I know that you're interested as well.
Yes.
So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other comments? Bomani.
If
You're still on mute, Bomani. There you go.
Yeah, how does one get involved with the collaboratives?
So we're going to send out Zoom invites. So I would say either email Judy Kittner, our clerk. That's clerk@yso.com. Or you can email me or Lisa or Josue. I mentioned, some of the other folks that from the village side that are going to be part of that group. And then we're also going to be announcing this in the paper. We'll put these on our Facebook page. And, in the short term, there'll be Zoom meetings, but everyone is welcome and encouraged to attend.
Great. So I want to just add that I'm encouraged by a lot of things I've heard so far. And I think we had like a rough spot. And I'm really like encouraged, proud, supportive of the youth organizers in, pushing through all this. And I'm glad to see people making the effort to like get over the top past and through the wave of discord, and I'm looking for us like some positive things to happen in the future. That's all I got.
Thanks, Bomani. And yeah, I think we all really appreciate those words. And, that's where my head is at. I think that's where everybody else is as well. And, again, I really appreciated Chief's words, because I think that's one of the things we're all reflecting on is, now more than ever, we've got to, think differently and really respond to the public health crisis that is racism. Any other comments? Okay. I'm not seeing any other hands or anything. Okay. Philip said no comments. All right, this is awesome. Again, I'll mention next meeting for the Justice System Collaborative Committee is September 1st from 3 to 4 p.m. I think we will start recording those meetings, and we'll be taking notes, sending out an agenda. There will be materials because there's a lot of work to do. And again, this is the committee that will be prioritizing these issues and keeping them on the village's radar. which is again why I encourage everything to funnel through that group, because that is a way that we can track these actions in an effective way. Okay, so anything else before we move into old business? All right, excellent. Thanks, everyone. So under old business, it kind of segues into some things we've already been talking about. And I don't know that we'll go into too much depth, but I would like, Josue, if you could go ahead and share that document that is kind of a reformatted version of what was in the packet. So there were 3 main agenda items at that meeting last Tuesday, August 11th. And one of those, and this reflects that, is this working document around actions that have happened, things that we think are ready to move forward. And you saw a couple of those happen tonight. And then things that are going to require a deeper dive. So if you looked at that document in the packet, I want to again emphasize it's a draft. We're adding to that document. To what Megan asked earlier, we need to do more reflection on the entirety of how racism affects us in a lot of different dimensions. But if you looked at that list in the packet, I also picked up on things like Marianne and talked about what kind of impact can we have on the region or the state. And there are some things happening right now related to that Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission meeting that there's some information in the packet on, where most Greene County representatives tabled, and they wanted to table it indefinitely, an initiative to, again, recognize for the region that racism is a public health emergency. It was the term they used. This was very disheartening, but it made us realize that these are the kinds of things we need to put out there. So we have some potential. There's a group called Citizens for a Better Beaver Creek. When they found out that Beaver Creek voted to table this resolution, they immediately reached out, and I think we can work with groups like this in all communities in Greene County and beyond. I know that other elected officials in, I think, more sort of with it mindedness around racism are also working on this to talk to municipalities in the region that seem to need some education and some recognition of what's going on. And also some groups in Dayton reached out to us. So I think that we're going to be able to do things like that. I mentioned that we've got folks that are involved in housing, that are involved in public health, and that's where the document that I'm sharing came from. Cindy Seek started to help think about how we can look at different areas around systemic racism. And so what we want to do in terms of monitoring and our progress is to look at what's happening and continue to add to this list. I've heard some things tonight that I don't think are reflected here, and this is what the committee will continue to talk about. So I'm not sure that we need to go in much more depth right now. I mentioned that we're going to work on some working groups. Kellyanne Tracy and I are talking about that. We've got a variety of folks that Marianne and Kevin highlighted that are interested in doing work that I think will all funnel in. And again, this is just a beginning. So anything that people see that is missing from things we've done, Justice System Task Force, people know that better than anyone, as well as things that we can move forward sooner rather than later. And then again, some of these deeper discussions about what we can do. And I think that, we get it on paper, we have a vetting and review process, we make recommendations. And again, every council meeting, this is going to be a standing agenda item that is not going to fall off of any future agendas. We are going to keep those meetings tight at an hour So we're going to come in with, some clear direction, and then, likely assigning tasks to different folks that want to work on these things, such as a citizen review board, or, some of the other things like how do we quantify and qualify the effectiveness of our training and so forth. So I'm going to stop there because we've talked a lot tonight about meaningful action. We've taken a few of those. But, this has been something that, for the last couple months since we passed that resolution on June 15th, that racism is a public health crisis, that has been collecting, and I also appreciate the requests, demands from the demonstrators that really, has helped to build out this list. So welcome any comments or questions, but also know that we're going to be having lots of discussions about this moving forward. And Josue, you can go ahead and stop sharing the document so that I can see if anybody's got any questions or comments. Laura, are you?
Well, I think it looks like a great list. And again, I think the committee will add to it and we'll get public input as time goes on. But yeah, that looks terrific. Thank you.
All right. Okay, anything else before we move to the next agenda item? And again, I hope I'm not shortchanging this, but I think a lot of the discussion tonight has all really kind of culminated in, what that list is starting to represent and some of the work that you're going to see moving forward. All right. Excellent. Okay, so the other agenda item is mine, and actually we already covered that. The Greene County Board of Elections is not taking any action. Secretary of State Frank LaRose continues to attack our community and suggests that we are sowing seeds of dissension. And while on one hand, he's talking about enfranchisement of voters, on the other hand, I'm not seeing him do anything to actually make that happen. And so it's a really disappointing state of affairs, but our amendment to make, to give voting rights to non-US citizen residents in local issues is definitely constitutional on the state and federal level, and is definitely designed to be inclusive and allow people that contribute to our community to have a say in local government. So we'll be talking more after our special meeting about the actions that we can move forward. But I do want to again put out a call to any residents who are affected by this charter amendment and the fact that the Secretary of State is trying to disenfranchise community members. Please contact me or any council member or our clerk that you feel comfortable with, because there is something that we can do about this, and it's not going to require us to spend taxpayer dollars. So any questions or comments on that before we move to new business? All right, excellent. New business, Finance Committee recommendations on CARES Act dollars. Josue, are you gonna start this one out?
Yes, Brian, this is me, thank you. All right, I've got a PowerPoint presentation. Makes it easier to show the figures where we're at. Okay. All right, CARES Act funds use and recommendations. This is a brief overview of where we are with our CARES Act funds. Are you able to see this, Brian? Okay, so we received a total of $130,217.54 from the CARES Act funds distribution. We're also excited to announce that we have received an award from the Office of Criminal Justice Service for COVID-19 related expenses. This is for $12,000. We're still working through the details of what that will cover. We hope to have that process finalized. To date, we spent a total of $53,634.71 on non-personnel expenses. This is contracted services, material supplies, marketing expense, and a few other things. Now, to date, we spent a total of $103,375 on personnel expenses. This is the cost of having had sent our team to work 2 days on, 2 days off during the initial shutdown that took place in March through May. So we tallied up that expense. That's what it's come out to. This is primarily in the Public Works Division. As you know, the police personnel, they have to continue working their normal schedules. So this 103 just reflects that. Now, what expense, personnel expense do we have that cannot be covered elsewhere? Meaning, we've already contemplated salary expense within the Public Works Division, but we have about $21,299 that are personnel expenses that we could not cover elsewhere, that we have not already budgeted that expense in that budget. So this is a summary of our expenses. Next slide. Where have we spent this non-personnel expense? Here's a breakdown of where we spent those funds. $17,104 have gone towards business support. This is the hand sanitizer stations and the liquids that we've distributed in our community. In community outreach, we've spent $10,851. This covers marketing expense, the digital signs, advertisement in the newspaper, a few other activities that were community outreach activities. In community support, we spent $14,238. This is to provide supportive services for our communities. Some of the expense in here has included making space improvements on the pool to ensure that we're providing a safer environment for residents. Other things are the snack bags and snacks and food purchases that we've made. The snacks and a few other items for direct distribution to our residents. Government operations, this is primarily things on the government side of the expense, things that we needed to provide a better service for our residents and to be better equipped to handle the COVID-19 emergency response. So things such as the Zoom accounts that we've had to acquire, the additional camera equipment that we've acquired to be able to do a lot of our work remotely. It has included some of the infrastructural expense. The infrastructure expense, like the public Wi-Fi that we set up in the train station, we moved that over under community support. So some of the infrastructure expense has been spent in community support and government operations. So in a nutshell, that brings us to $53,634, and I've included a colorful chart there so that you can see the breakdown in percentages on a pie chart. All right, so what is next step? We should focus on high and long-term impact activities for all stakeholders. Now, we've got limited number of funds. If you look at just this breakdown that I have here, we're looking at around $55,000. So these are three ideas here on how to use the remainder of the funds. Starting off with the wireless mesh, this is a high impact project which helps build business, community, and infrastructure resiliency. As you know, the schools are going to be all online for that first quarter. I think we're going to have a lot of connectivity challenges. This helps us get there, as it does help provide connectivity for our residents and our businesses. The second one in here, this one I've started to have the conversation with Johnnie and Judy and others. One of the challenges we see in the near future is that we're going to have school children who may not have a safe or conducive environment for the work that they need to do at school. So we're looking at the potential project where we can reconfigure our youth center to provide safe space for students, and they could sign up for hours or time slots here in the John Bryant Center where they could get school and academic support while they're doing their online classes. Then we got a item here for ongoing support. I think the village council made a commitment to provide hand sanitizer as appropriate and as needed. We made a large purchase of 110 gallons just recently for that effort. And, you know, folks are using the hand sanitizer station. So we expect that cost to be ongoing. There's no near end in sight for this. So I think that there's a need to continue some of this ongoing support. So these are three ideas we have. I welcome feedback from council, from residents, business owners. If this is affecting you, consider providing thoughts on this.
All right, thank you, Josue. And I really appreciate the detail and especially showing where these funds are going to support different constituents. I'm going to make a recommendation, since we're already over time on our meeting, that we, like you said, put that out there for feedback and revisit this to make some decisions on at our September 8th meeting. Will that work?
Yes, and I just want to be mindful that we have to incur this expense. Incur an expense, because this is a grant that we have to justify the expenses in our upcoming report on early part of October. So ideally, we would like to spend this money through September.
Okay.
Brian,
All right.
Brian,
Yeah.
I think with the exception of that $5,000 item on the school support, I mean, seems like we ought to move forward where we spend that on the Bryan Center to support. I don't know exactly what he has in mind, but that seems to be.
Yeah, and go ahead.
Well, I don't think we should wait till September on that item.
Yeah, and actually, oh, you mean for the 5,000?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, I agree. I think all of these recommendations, my understanding is that Josue and the team are looking at how to move those forward. So for the wireless mesh, that's going to involve some other partner support because the total price tag is a little over 60,000. And we'll get some more details about all the benefits that brings. And as Josue said, I know that we're working on like what that John Bryan Youth Center support can look like. And then, yeah, the last one about continuing sanitizer and signs, I think we probably all agree that's an expense that we've got to earmark for. Two things that are also part of the funding stream are support from the Community Foundation for the village's efforts, and also going after some FEMA support as well. So I also appreciate that Josue is looking at all the different options for funding COVID impacts.
Great.
Okay.
So Brian, to Laura's point, if I can get some general idea on moving these three things, I think that'd be great, because then I could start engaging the partners as necessary to get these things rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Kevin, Marianne?
Yeah, I'm in favor of moving everything forward.
Yeah, I think general support, and then, again, on September 8th, it'll be good to have more details about, what these initiatives look like.
Brian, can I ask a question regarding the wireless system presumably in the downtown area? You said that requires, some partnership for what sounds like the other half of the funds. Is that in place, or is it committed?
I know Josue is having conversations with folks.
Correct. So I've got a support from one entity, no formal commitment, but it's within their mission and vision of what they want to do for the community. So I think they're going to come through with something. I'm engaging another entity who may have some financial resources, but just this week last week, they've expressed some challenges on their end, and that might limit it, but it's not going to keep me from asking.
Excellent. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and actually, as a side note, yeah, we also, the county has a pretty hefty sum of CARES Act dollars as well. So that's another potential funding source for some of these things. Okay, anything else? All right, Josue, managers reports.
All right, we made it to the managers report. Briefly, we've continued a lot of our COVID-19 responses. That includes the marketing campaign, social media, digital signs. I do have a question for you on digital signs. I think the messaging that we have up there is related to the mask on in DC and Glen Helen is closed. Now that there's a statewide mandate for masks, I think that we've done all that we need or that we could have done to inform folks about the mask requirement. I think it would be a good idea to remove the signs and focus on that expense in other areas. I'm welcome to feedback on that. We're fully restocking the hand sanitizer stations. Those are working well. I reported on the grant money from the law enforcement grant. We have a public Wi-Fi at the train station that's working well. The swimming pool will close on August 30th. So if you haven't been out there like Brian has, go take a dip. And thank those young people who've done an amazing job at providing the safest environment we could have asked for during this period. On the Renee cleanup, there's my general updates. I have new information to provide. We've met with the Ohio EPA and Benedict Williams to discuss an update to our water source protection delineation map. The Ohio EPA has agreed to assist with a new delineation map. Now, a thorough time of travel analysis and map will still need to be conducted as a separate project. Financial report for the month of July is included in your report. We've done the work on the solid waste management contract, which you have approved tonight. We'll be bringing an ordinance proposal at the next council session. We have a staff transition. Our finance director, Colleen Harris, has decided to take another role, but she will assist through the transition through September 10th. I'm sad to see Colleen Harris go, but I wish her all the best, and I thank her for the wonderful job that she's done during her tenure here. We have a staff update, Brian, you referenced this earlier. Danielle Franklin will be returning to the police department in the part-time dispatch role on an as-needed basis. So we are excited to have Danielle back. All right, police department. There, I've included the updates for the police department. The number of incidents, 582. No Narcan administered during this reporting period, which is good. We have 3 new draft policies under review. That includes bias-based policing. We're continuing our effort to update the police manual. You know that's been an ongoing effort since I started the job. Our goal will be that next year we'll review every policy in the police manual. The chief continues his work with the law enforcement agencies and the network. That includes the county, the sheriff's office, the public health entities. All right. What else? We continue to provide public safety support at the Black Lives Matter protest, and that is an ongoing effort. We do have training coming up with, we have a training schedule where Naomi Watson and Officer Page, they conducted 4 hours of duty to intercede training course. This has been a topic of discussion throughout the country on the duty to intercede by officers when they see other officers making poor judgment in their decisions. So Our management team in the police department provided training on the duty of every officer to intercede if there's an issue. So this hasn't been part of a recent discussion with the demonstrator, but it is an important piece of work that we're doing. And so we've done that training. On the public works side, we're reviewing the electric study. You've heard us talk several times about the need for third circuit and what's the condition of our electric grid system. We'll be bringing this study to council soon. There are several recommendations in there. So the conversations about a mysterious third circuit will be very clear when this report and recommendations is brought to council. Sidewalk and curb repairs are ongoing. Sidewalk grinding for phase 3 is scheduled for completion during the week of the 21st. The bike trail past storm sinkhole repairs will begin August 28th. If you haven't noticed, there's a big sinkhole next to the bike trail near Corey Street, along Corey Street by where the community gardens are. So we've got that on the schedule to be repaired on the 28th, and it's going to significantly improve the safety off the bike path. We're continuing to do catch basins repair, and that work begins on August 24th. And valve exercising is scheduled through all of this week. We do not anticipate brown water, but there's a possibility that some of these valves are going to loosen things up and some folks may experience brown water. All right, lift station pump motor has arrived and that's scheduled for installation in next week. This is that over $50,000 pump that we just recently purchased that you gave us authorization for. Finally, the comprehensive land use plan goes to Planning Commission on September 15th, and then to you, Council, for final approval on the 21st. And now I welcome any questions.
Josue, you didn't mention it in this report, but you had shared, I think maybe the last meeting, about the, I think it's called iWorks, or the ticketing, I call it a ticketing system, but the requests for residents. Has there been much activity with that system, or has the word really gotten out enough to have folks really using it yet?
Yes, Kevin, we've had, I don't know if you've been seeing Philip's marketing effort on this. We've had it several times during the week. We have received several requests from citizens. But we hope that number to continue. We hope that number to increase. I intended to bring a report in at this meeting, but we couldn't get it in. I'll bring a report on the use for next meeting.
Great.
That's on the citizen side. On our internal side, all of our public works work goes through the iWork system. So we're tracking that every work order, so we can tell you what's being done and by who.
Great, great.
We've fully implemented that internally. We've also loaded our assets onto that platform. So everything that we provide maintenance on, that we work on, that contributes to the delivery of service for residents is being tracked as an asset, from valves to piping, poles, you name it.
Should I put my sidewalk concerns in there, or just be patient?
You should. This is the right platform for it.
Okay.
If we can deploy someone to it, it should go in the public works, with the exceptions of emergencies. We had someone put in a power outage through our app. That's considered an emergency, or we want to get to those right away. So we encourage everyone for those emergencies to call dispatch and get that request in.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the update.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions for Josue? Okay, do we have any board and commission reports? All right. Yeah.
Laura, I just want to say Planning Commission worked really hard, was really busy last week, and I encourage citizens to read the packet online and the minutes when those come out. Thank you.
Thanks, Laura. Mary Ann, you're on mute. Mary Ann, are you trying to comment?
Yeah, I am. One of the issues at Planning Commission was in regard to parking. And I submitted a letter in that regard. And I think it's time for council to direct Planning Commission to revisit the parking requirements. I believe they're outdated. There's a lot of good material on what more progressive communities are doing in regard to parking. This is a sort of FYI because I'll come to the next meeting with a fuller recommendation.
Okay, thanks, Mary Ann. Kevin?
Yeah, if you don't mind. So in a land far away in a time long ago, pre-COVID, I was about to nominate Carmen Lee to the Human Relations Commission. COVID hit. There were some other issues that I needed to resolve first. Those issues got resolved and clarified. And the commission has not been meeting during COVID, but we are beginning to communicate about whether, when, and how we want to start up again. So I would like to go ahead and at the very least nominate Carmen Lee as a member of HRC. Laura and I talked to her, like I said, pre-COVID. But Carmen, a lot of folks know her. She served when she was here before and then left town and came back. She served on Yellow Springs Home Inc. board for a couple of years. She worked for Ohio Department of Job and Family Services in Clark County. She's got extensive experience connecting people and getting people and resources together. So I think she'd be a fantastic asset to the HRC, and I would like to nominate her for that.
Okay, and I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Okay.
Great.
All right. Future agenda items.
Well, we've added this solid waste ordinance, and you wanted another CARES Act funds discussion, in addition to what you already see there.
Yep. And then we've got some second reads. We've got some, we've got an ongoing old business. Anything else?
The only, just one, that is Brianne had asked whether you had an appetite to change the wording of that ordinance to change marijuana to cannabis, which would be a lot of little bits of editing. If there's an appetite to do that, we should probably get that done before that second reading. If you folks are inclined in that direction.
Could we just add a definition that references all the possible terms?
I don't even think that's necessary. I think that she had made the suggestion just because it's more progressive to work that way, but the ordinance is written, works just fine legally.
Okay. Okay, anything else?
One of the things that the Environmental Commission is going to be talking about this Thursday, we always seem to come after council frequently, is making a recommendation to council regarding having apartment owners provide tenants with recycling options. So I don't know if it's something we would come to the next council meeting with, but that's in the works.
Okay, so we'll put that in the parking lot. Great. Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, awesome meeting. Thanks, everyone. Stay
Thanks,
safe.
Brian.
Yeah, enjoy
Thanks,
the rest
everyone.
of the summer.
Bye-bye.